Hello and welcome to the Retro Odyssey podcast. I'm your host, Steven, along with my co-host, Matt, as usual.
Hello.
And today we have a special guest, a longtime friend of mine and kind of an expert in our topic for today, Alejandra Vargas.
Hello, everybody.
So Alejandra is a YouTuber who does manga reviews and a few other things. I think you've been on enough podcasts to be called a podcaster at this point.
At this point, yeah, you could also call me a published author by Halloween.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh, we have a book coming out.
A short story collection, but I'm definitely in it, and that's pretty cool.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. So, how have y'all been this past month? I know, this is your first time on the show, Alejandra, but how's everybody been?
Ooh, I had to move house because my kitchen had a problem, and that was so fun and relaxing and not at all stressful. And yet I've still found time to watch like 20 movies this month for spooky season. It's ridiculous. I don't know where I find the time.
For me, I've just been working. Same as usual. I've not had the time to watch 20 films, unfortunately. But I did watch one. I watched Curse of Frankenstein last week, which is Hammer Horror's first color film. Yeah, enjoyed it. Really good.
I mean, I've mostly just been working, like usual. Managed to work in a little bit of game time this month, but mostly just work. What all of you guys played this last month? I know, Matt and I both have played a lot of Final Fantasy 14.
Well, I have a long list, so you two go first.
Well, yeah, as usual, Final Fantasy 14. A new patch came out since we last recorded, so spending a lot of time on that. Vampire Survivors, which is finally been released. It's been kind of like pre-release version, like beta, up until now, but it got released 20th of October, and they added like quite a few new things with that. So I've been playing quite a lot of that, including the Bestiary, written by Stephanie Sterling, which is great to just. It's really well written. I've gone through probably about half the entries. I still need to go through like the bottom half, but that's really solid. And I've started playing Guild Wars 2 a bit as well, which is another MMO. And the base game is free, so I downloaded that and I've been having fun with that as well.
Nice.
And that's pretty much all I've been playing. But I keep seeing your Final Fantasy 14 achievements trickle through on my PS4 home screen.
Yeah, it's kind of slowed up here recently though, because I got back heavy into 14 this month. And I got almost to the end of the Shadowbringers expansion and hit a point where it's like, oh, here's some optional stuff you can do that massively adds to the story. It's like, well, let me go level up some other jobs so that I can do these. So I've been working on that a lot.
Did you manage to hit that final zone yet?
I did not. So I've done 2 of the role quests. I'm trying to level up my healer now to do that one. And then I just need to finish up the tank quest, and then I can start the rest of the expansion. Other than that, I have not been playing a ton. I played a little bit of Final Fantasy 13. I was mainly using it to test out both my Steam Deck's remote play for Xbox and my new Google Fiber connection, both of which are excellent. So I played a little bit of that, I don't think I got any Vampire Survivors in this month, and then a little bit of Fire Emblem here and there. I did get really into the Fire Emblem mobile game finally. Like I downloaded it day one, and it's taken this long to actually click with me to the point where I play it regularly. Because I mean, it's a pretty standard gacha game, just with Fire Emblem. But the mechanics are good, and the story gets good about halfway through the first campaign, and that I finally got to that point and started hitting the point where the rest of the stories are good.
Yeah, not all gacha games are terrible. As I mentioned before, I play Final Fantasy Dissidia, Opromnia, which is really good.
Yeah, I also I've been logging into War of the Visions, just gathering resources on that, because I was expecting to bounce off of Fire Emblem Heroes again and jump to that, and then I didn't bounce off.
Wait, what's War of the Visions? I've never heard of that one.
So it plays like Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay.
So it's basically a Final Fantasy gacha mobile game in the tactics gameplay style, as opposed to the traditional turn-based. Because that one is Final Fantasy Brave Exvius.
Oh, Jesus.
At
Is
least
Square Enix the main big publisher who really figured out how to do mobile games?
I don't know, because they did also publish Final Fantasy All the Bravest, which, as far as I'm aware, is still running and is essentially a crime against Final Fantasy.
I can say that the Final Fantasy Dissidia mobile game is a hell of a lot better than the console version.
Well, yeah.
Console version is terrible.
They had a pretty good one, Final Fantasy Record Keeper, that was, again, the traditional turn-based, but it was kind of a, here's a streamlined version of all the stories that you can, play through and, unlock these pictures and whatnot, save the realms kind of thing. But that actually just shut down this month. I think it was last week or the week before. So yeah, they have a lot of mobile games, because on top of all the Final Fantasy ones, they also have a one for the Mana series, which I tried and just could not get into. So yeah, they like. I don't know if they've cracked mobile games. I will say they've definitely done better than some companies have. I mean, Nintendo has the one good one in Fire Emblem, and everything else is kind of exploitative garbage. And I think that's partially because Fire Emblem Heroes is more developed by intelligent systems than Nintendo. So anyway, what have you been playing, Alejandra?
Oh, goodness. So every October, every year, I like to get a spooky game in every single console that I own. Whether or not I get to it or not is a different question entirely, but it's like a little ritual. And I have actually gotten to quite a few of them this year. I played a couple of the first levels of Dead Space, which is a classic. That game is almost timeless as far as I'm concerned. I don't really know how the remake's going to make it much better.
Microtransactions, probably.
Oh, yeah. It can make it more profitable, maybe, but I don't know how it's going to make the game better. Like, seriously, like, how many games can you think of where the starting pistol is something that you legitimately want to play the whole game with?
I know I've come across it before, but it doesn't happen often.
I only played a little bit of that because I've beaten that game like twice. It's a classic. I played a surprising amount of Amnesia Rebirth. Did you two hear about this one?
No, I have
did.
I have played Amnesia, but not Rebirth.
Yeah, so I mean, Amnesia: The Dark Descent was like the spearhead of the whole indie jump scare YouTuber market.
Yeah.
And the game itself is quite good. Like, it's got some really slow-paced physics puzzles that I think probably turn off the streamers nowadays. So they've all moved on to Five Nights at Freddy's or, I guess, Slender Man for a little while. Then there was Machine for Pigs, which was made by another developer, because I guess the original developers don't own the name Amnesia. Those developers went on to make Soma, but last year they finally came back with Amnesia Rebirth, which is very much just another Amnesia: The Dark Descent game. It is bigger, though. Like, Amnesia: The Dark Descent all takes place in a spooky castle. This one, you do spend a lot of time in, like, spooky cave systems or spooky abandoned French Foreign Legion bases. But there's also large segments where you're just wandering around in, like, an open desert. And the only thing stopping you from wandering off into the horizon is that there's like a heat mechanic where if you're not in the shade, the sun will kill you. It's very story driven. It's of course very spooky. The thing that stuck out to me the most was that you're playing as a woman, and like they modeled her whole body. Because, like, a major mechanic is that she realizes, like, halfway through the game that she's pregnant. And, like, because she has amnesia. And, like, a big mechanic is, like, holding your belly in order to, like, calm the terrifying thoughts. And, like, it kind of blew my mind the first time I looked down my character model. And I'm like, oh, shit, I have tits. I don't know. I was not expecting that. Weirdly euphoric for me.
Because a lot of times in first person games, you look down and you don't even have feet.
Yeah, you're just a floating camera.
Yeah, basically.
So I had a lot of fun with that. I got the Mortuary Assistant for my birthday. Only played a bit of that. That game is really good at making you tense. It's kind of got that whole Papers, Please thing where it's like it hands you a little puzzle to do. And then, like, around the puzzle is all this storytelling.
I mean,
but if you're the kind of person who gets sucked into puzzles, it can be really effective.
it's a good setup for a game. Like,
it's not one I played myself. I watched an Indie Mouse video on it, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it does, it does look interesting.
I haven't played much of it, but yeah, no, the whole, like, you actually have a job to do puzzle element is, like, it really scratches my brain and like in a way that makes me really susceptible to the jump scares because I'm focused and then suddenly there's a weird thing in the window. And like the jump scares I've had so far are really like quiet. Like they don't have someone tase the orchestra pit every time something spooky happens. Just oh, there was a skeleton in the other room and you could see it if you were looking. Were you looking? Maybe you weren't. Played a little bit of that 40K shooter Necromunda.
Not familiar with that one.
It's Doom. It's trying to be Doom, the new Doom.
Okay.
It's what do I say? The guns are super slammy. Like the sound effects are just like thunky and super like visceral. So they got that right. But the enemy AI, and I've only played a bit of this game, is just brain dead. So we'll see how that develops as I go through the game. It does have the whole like new Doom mechanic where killing enemies gets you health back. But instead of having to go up for a glory kill, you just get health back by shooting people. What was the other big thing I played? There was one more game I spent. I played a little bit of Apex Legends. Because they're releasing a new champion who I'm interested in. I haven't touched the game in a few years. It's somehow more microtransaction-y than I remember.
I mean, are you really surprised?
No, I'm not. But the core gameplay actually still really holds up, so I don't know. It's less offensive to me than like a couple of other similar games I've played. I remember what it was. I have a lot of free time on my job site sometimes. So I take my PSP with me, and I've been playing Mega Man Powered Up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this weird like chibi anime remake of the first Mega Man game, and it's really good. Like, have either of you played this?
I have not. I played the Mega Man X remake for PSP that they did.
No, I've not played it either. I'm not really a big Mega Man person.
Yeah,
Well,
he tries to avoid it.
I mean, I absolutely understand. I grew up with some Mega Mans on the Game Boy, and they are just frustrating. This does a lot to not be frustrating. There is a lives mechanic, but it's not like you get kicked all the way back to the beginning of the game. You just get kicked back to the beginning of the level. There's individual difficulty levels you can do for each stage, easy, medium, or hard. Like, it's not like set for the whole game. And like I was blown away the first time I switched a game down to easy, and there were like new platforms in the level to make some of the jumping challenges easier.
Okay,
That's a good concept.
yeah, that really is.
Yeah, it's wild. And I know it's because like a major side mechanic in this game is like a level editor. So like all the levels are kind of built with the level editor and makes them pretty boxy. So that's like why they can just like throw in new platforms, or I imagine take some away if you switch it up to hard mode, which I'm not gonna do to myself because it's still Mega Man 1. It's not an easy game. They added in 2 new robot masters for the game. I mean, I say new, they just weren't in the original game because it was only 6. I'm pretty sure Oil Man was from something. It's fully voice acted for Wily and Dr. Light and Roll and Mega Man and the Robot Masters. They have little like quips that when you first meet them. And the first time I discovered that you could like if you defeat the Robot Masters using only the Mega Buster, they don't die and you take them back to Dr. Light and he fixes them and they become a playable character.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can replay all the levels as any of the Robot Masters. If you hit the Robot Masters with any of the Robot Master weapons, it doesn't even have to be one that they're weak to. They will just explode and you don't collect them, as it were.
That's kind of wild.
Right? It's just neat. And when you replay the game as, I don't know, say Gutsman, they completely change some of the lines. Like, Dr. Wily has a different line for why he decided to not bother kidnapping you. Along with the other Dr. Light robots.
Huh.
It is elaborate, and I'm really upset it's only on the PSP.
Well, judging by the amount of Mega Man collections they've released recently, it's probably going to get ported at some point.
One can only hope. Capcom's good about that.
You would think. I know, because the Mega Man X one, I think, was just like a straight port. Like they basically made it 3D models instead of the sprites. But I think that was it. I don't know that there was anything that significant added. I also haven't been all the way through it, so maybe I just didn't come across it.
So, I mean, I could list other stuff that I played for like 5 minutes, but that's the main stuff.
So I think we can move along to news. We don't have a ton of stuff to talk about.
No, not a huge amount, but we'll start with the bigger one. After Konami has spent several years trying to bury the Silent Hill franchise, they finally announced about 1 million new Silent Hill games, all in one live stream that they did. They kicked it off with a remake of Silent Hill 2, which I'm very excited about it. It is my favorite video game of all time. And it's been made by Bloober Team, which a little bit iffy, but
Yeah, I
the
find that a
trailer,
little concerning.
everything in the trailer is actually something from the original game. So if they stick pretty much exactly to that script, then hopefully that will kind of like allay some of the issues. But it looks fantastic. Like James looks fantastic. Yeah, I am really, really looking forward to that. It's going to be PS5 exclusive on console.
Also, not a fan of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I mean, I don't have a PS5, but this game is probably a couple years away yet, so I can say
They did say it was coming to Steam at some point, right?
Oh, I believe PC at the same time as PS5. So it is coming to PC as well. But games like that, I like to play like on the big TV screen.
Yeah.
On PC. But like I say, it's not going to be for a while yet, so I have time to save up for a PS5. They also announced, what was the next game they announced? Silent Hill Townfall. We really don't know much about that other than a trailer.
I did look into the developer. They did The Observer, which is that like video game in space where you're like the AI system having to like camera hop to help one of the astronauts. So when I heard that, I'm like, oh, okay, they might pull something off, but it's not a trailer, it's a teaser.
Yeah, I mean, it consists of basically a shot of a walkie-talkie and people talking through it. So yeah, you don't get anything really in that trailer. But there is also what was the name of the next one that they showed, which is going to be kind of like a live serve. It isn't entirely confirmed whether it's going to be a live service or some kind of live stream.
Or an ARG or something. They were very vague.
Yeah, it's going to be something that people are able to kind of like influence in some way. But I don't know if that's going to be in kind of like because it's a live service game or if it's more of kind of like a Twitch chat influencing a game kind of thing.
I mean, I haven't played much of the series, but I feel like Silent Hill is the kind of series where you need that very tight development structure. Like, you know, like you can't have just random crap happening.
According to Google, it's an interactive live stream series, and it's called Silent Hill Ascension. So, sure.
Okay.
So yeah, from the marketing materials, it looks like there's a lot to do with like text messages and stuff like that. So maybe that is the kind of interaction that they're talking about. People sending text messages or something to influence the story. I don't know. We'll have to see. But the other really interesting game from that live stream is Silent Hill F, which had an absolutely beautiful trailer. We don't know anything about it other than that trailer, but it really, really does look at least fantastic. Set in Japan, something to
that
do with
is going to be
blossoms.
A first.
Yeah, it will be. I don't know how it will really connect to Silent Hill, but it wouldn't be the first game that isn't actually set in Silent Hill. Like most of Silent Hill 4 isn't set in Silent Hill. The first half of Silent Hill 3 isn't set in Silent Hill. So we'll see. But it is an absolutely beautiful and quite haunting trailer.
I did a little bit of research on this when it was announced. I don't know anything about the developer, but the game's story is being developed by someone called Ryukishi07, who is apparently quite well known in the visual novel community. And like a couple of people I know online were like, "Oh shit, that guy was like my childhood." Or I don't mean childhood, like when you're in your like late teens, early 20s, and you're just diving headfirst into whatever weird internet culture you found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was that for some people, so that gave me a little bit of hope. We'll see if the game actually happens, though, because like you said, it's not even like a trailer, it's a teaser for a thing being made. Who knows when it's even going to be out?
Yeah. I defer to the experts on this one because I do not know the series. I have played one game.
Which one?
Silent Hill 2 for the podcast.
There you go.
It was episode 1.
A kind of funny little side note on this as well, just Konami being somewhat inept as well. They had the live stream going, and as soon as the live stream started, the entire presentation was available on their YouTube channel to watch. So you could just skip the countdown and just skip to whatever part of the live stream that you wanted to watch, which was quite funny.
Not as bad as the live stream Sega has done.
Oh, well.
I mean, I also don't want to forget to mention from that live stream that they're doing another Silent Hill movie from the director of the first Silent Hill movie, which isn't like great or anything, but it's pretty good by video game movie standards.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I mean, the second film was god awful.
Garbage.
Filth.
Which is a shame because it had Carrie-Anne Moss and Malcolm McDowell in it.
Well, quite often, to be honest, a good indication of quality is a film not having Malcolm McDowell in it. Some of the shit that he's done.
Hey, don't you be talking shit about Tank Girl.
Oh, Tank Girl's decent, but I've seen more bad Malcolm McDowell films than good ones.
I always thought the first Silent Hill movie was weird because out of all movies, that's the one that Sean Bean survives.
Well, I mean, not to completely derail our video game talk, but Sean Bean wasn't even really supposed to be in most of the movie. It was just supposed to be about the mom wandering Silent Hill, and the producers were like, but where's the man? What is the man doing? So he had to cram in some scenes to explain what he was doing.
I mean, at least they had a good actor to do that with.
Oh, he did not have a good accent, though.
Well, I mean, nobody's
Plus,
perfect.
you say he survived. He didn't survive the sequel.
Okay, but usually he doesn't make it out of the first movie.
But there is actually a fan edit of the first movie that actually removes him from the film.
Oh, entirely?
Yeah, because he's kind of pointless to the story.
Yeah, I mean, you could take him out. It wouldn't change anything.
But this second movie is going to be based on Silent Hill 2, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
We'll see how it goes. I don't necessarily have like the greatest faith in the director, and I especially don't trust the producer they had on camera because his credits include the Resident Evil movies.
I mean, I kind of have a bit of a soft spot for a lot of those Paul Anderson Resident Evil movies, to be honest. The last two are terrible, but I do get a certain kind of like cheesy B-movie enjoyment from the other ones.
Yeah, there's some enjoyment to be had.
They're not the worst things ever, but like, man, Silent Hill is just so much more complex and rich than Resident Evil.
At least this time they'll have an excuse for using Pyramid Head instead of just shoving him in somewhere.
Yeah.
What else do we have? I know there were a couple of other things.
Something about Atari?
Yes, Atari are bringing out. It's actually coming out in a couple of weeks' time. It's called Atari 50: The Anniversary Celebration. It is an interactive look through 50 years of Atari and includes over 100 playable classics and 6 entirely new titles from the award-winning team at Digital Eclipse. I'm not I'm not entirely sure calling 6 entirely new titles for this anything to do with Atari, because Atari haven't been Atari for most of those 50 years. It's just someone wearing their skin suit. But,
yeah, I was going to say, I wonder how many of the games are actually Atari.
Well, it says 90 plus classic games lovingly presented with best-in-class emulation and modern quality of life enhancements.
So save states.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. A lot of these like collections that do that. Platforms include arcade, 2600, 5200, 7800, Atari 8-bit computers, Lynx, and Jaguar.
Oh, wow. They're really hitting the whole gambit there.
Yeah.
Okay, so just Atari console, not like Atari the game dev.
Well, I'm not sure. They haven't actually given a list of all the games. That's the thing.
Okay.
Or at least not one that I can find. So I can't say definitively. But this is coming out on November the 11th, I believe, for Xbox One, PS4, PS5, and Switch.
Right, so we'll find out sooner or later.
Yeah. But a compilation with like 100 playable games. From what I've seen the prices, it looks to be about £40 or whatever your equivalent is. That's
$60.
Yeah,
that is steep for some Atari ROMs.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
but there are going to be about 100 of them though.
Even then. Now, I will say, since they said they're including the Lynx and the Jaguar, depending on what they pick from those consoles, that might be more interesting, because those are not straightforward to emulate, and there may be some
either.
Yeah, and there may be some deep cuts in those libraries that are actually worth trying. Who knows? We have to see them.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, my fondest memory of the Atari logo is the PS1 game Pong: The Next Level. So this isn't exactly my bag.
You know what I really remember them for? The Alone in the Dark console games.
Yes, I never played those.
Like New Nightmare or whatever it was on the Dreamcast was basically just Resident Evil. And then there was that one on the 360 with like the really good fire mechanics that everyone hated.
I think I've got it, actually. I don't think I've ever played it.
And then they had that one back in like 2015 where you are no longer alone or in the dark. Because they did the 4-person multiplayer thing.
Yep. Although that was very much into their skin suit era.
Well, yeah.
I mean, my kind of like prevailing memory of Atari is back when the Jaguar was failing. Game in the UK, which is kind of like our equivalent of your Game Spot or GameStop rather. They had the consoles for like £30 with a game, and I didn't pick one up. This was like when no one wanted a Jaguar, and at the time I also didn't want a Jaguar, but I really wish I'd have picked one up, or indeed several up for £30.
Right?
These will be worth something in the future to weird collectors.
Yeah, you're looking at like a few £100 now for like a boxed console.
That's actually really low for a still in-box console.
I mean, it might have risen since then.
It also is a Jaguar.
Yeah, typically there's I love the sort of sliding scale of value on old stuff. It's like rarity and how much people actually want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing between £200 and £300 for a box console.
Yeah, I mean, new in box, that's not terrible. But
I'm hard pressed to think of anything on the Jaguar I'd want. I'd have an easier time thinking of Sega CD games I'd like to get my hands on.
Well, yeah.
Apparently the Jaguar version of Doom was quite good.
Oh yeah, I did hear they were like the only console version to have the music right.
Yeah, well, it was actually a new soundtrack. It wasn't the original. It was made entirely for the Jaguar, which is and I've heard it. It's quite good as well.
I mean, that's still pretty cool. But yeah, so I mean, this is coming out soon. I might check it out. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, for if they're focusing specifically on the Atari consoles, maybe people that missed all of that would be interested in it. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. Just Atari's been dead for a long time, so seeing Atari is still kind of weird. But anyway, do we have anything else? I don't think there's a ton of retro related stuff.
Well, in terms of releases, not much. You do have the more recent Resident Evil games coming to Switch in November.
Oh, that's right.
On the they're going to be cloud versions, which I know Adam, who used to be on this show, has not had a good experience with at least Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, he was
on
really
that
upset.
cloud version. But people have said that Village is decent, but he didn't have a good time with Village, so maybe it kind of like varies depending on how good your internet connection is, really.
I don't know. Like I don't know how much I trust the cloud version because I mean, number one, the only game that they've done it with that I'm actually interested in is Kingdom Hearts, and I have so many versions of those that aren't cloud-based. I've not heard great things about the cloud streaming options, at least for Switch. I mean, Microsoft's cloud streaming works pretty well, but it's Microsoft.
Yeah. But other than that, for releases, there's one more. It's not retro, but I only mention it because we've both played most of the games in this series. The next Dark Pictures anthology game, The Devil in Me, is coming out November 18th.
Oh, dang, I forgot there was another one coming out this year. Oh, man, I still haven't played last year's.
The one that wasn't Dark Pictures, or what you call it?
Oh, no, it was Dark Pictures, the House of Ashes.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I still haven't played that one yet.
It's The Quarry that I haven't played.
Yeah, The Quarry I haven't played either.
But that is everything for the releases and news, really.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll just take a quick break and come back with our main topic for the episode.
Okay.
Don't be afraid. I'm part of the family.
All right, so our topic for this month, this spookiest of months, is games based on horror movies. The first of which that we picked is Alien 3. And I will say up front, part of the reason Alejandra is here is because she is far, far more versed than I am in horror movies. She's more on your level, Matt.
Cool.
Big fan. Alien 3 is... I don't want to say it's my favorite Alien movie because Alien 1 it's fantastic. Alien and Aliens are just fantastic movies. And Alien 3 is, as much as I'm fond of it, not at their level. But I'm just... It's like my fan favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the issues are due to studio interference. Like, there's a reason that David Fincher will not take part in any interviews or bonus material for the DVDs and Blu-rays.
Because they chopped up his vision.
Mm.
Didn't they also like go back and retcon a lot of what happened in Alien 3?
That's assuming you care about what happens in any of the movies after Alien 3.
Hmm.
I mean, Neil Blomkamp was going to do a Alien film which would ignore 3 and follow on from Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be the usual thing. And really, like, we say that, I don't think there has been an Alien movie that continued the canon other than Resurrections, which is another can of worms entirely. Let's not go there. But Alien 3 is, if you want to think of the trilogy as, like, the parts of Ripley's life, Alien is when she's, like, a single woman working. Aliens is when she's finding her motherhood. I say finding her motherhood. She was literally a mother, according to that movie back in Alien 1. But, like, did she mention she had a kid in Alien?
I don't think she did.
I don't personally remember that.
And then Alien 3 would be her at the end of her life. And in the broad strokes, the symbolism of her, like, sacrificing herself to prevent the corporation's ultimate goal of monetizing crazy, dangerous animals somehow is, it hits. I like the setting, the creativity of it. It's one of those things that's like, man, this would make a really good not Alien movie, because, like, all the stuff that, like, is the most bad about it is when it has to, like, mention that it's a sequel to Aliens.
I mean, it certainly has, like, a very interesting concept. Just a bunch of prisoners, most of whom are British for some reason, just being hunted down. I do really, really like the concept of it, and I've never hated Alien 3 as much as some people do.
Yeah, no, I think it stands. I think it stands as a good example of a movie that people just really didn't like because it wasn't what they wanted, rather than for what it is.
I mean, from what I understand, they got way worse later on.
Yeah.
Well, I have a soft spot for the prequels, but Alien Resurrection is garbage.
AVP 2 is also just complete bubkiss.
I went to cinema to see Alien VP, Alien vs. Predator, and I hated it.
Oh, no. Alien vs. Predator 2 is the one I was talking about. Requiem,
yeah,
or whatever
I've
it's
not seen
called.
that one.
It's awful. Like, not to get completely off track, Alien vs. Predator is made by Paul Anderson, who made the Resident Evil movies. So, like, it's kind of got that junky fun element to it. Alien vs. Predator 2 does not have that.
He can make good films. I mean, Event Horizon is fantastic.
I think that's his best movie.
And Mortal Kombat as well is goofy and just shit and also fun.
So yeah, Alien 3, worth watching. Probably won't be your favorite Alien movie, but that's not a bad thing.
Now, the game, on the other hand, is, I mean, it's not the best. Like,
we should point out at the start that there are 2 distinct versions of the game.
Oh, there are even more than that. Because, I mean, let's see. I tried the Genesis, Super Nintendo, Game Gear, and Game Boy versions. I'm trying to remember if there's any more.
Well, I initially started with Master System version. I went on to the Genesis, then I played a bit of the Super Nintendo.
I played the Genesis version. I don't have a SNES. I could have emulated it, but I got a nice boxed copy of the Genesis version, and I was really excited to play that. It was actually the game I pulled out for my Genesis for the spooky month, because there's not a lot of spooky games on the Genesis.
The interesting thing I found is a lot of the Sega versions are very, very similar. You're basically rescuing prisoners within a time limit. The Game Boy version is much more stripped down. and it's kind of similar, but I think it's a top-down view uh, instead of the side view that I think every other version uses. And then the most complex version, I think, at least of the ones that we saw, was the Super Nintendo version, which has different missions that you can take from the computer.
There's kind of like a list of missions that you can pick from the computer terminal. Basically, you can go and rescue prisoners. There's one where you have to repair some leaking pipes. Others where you have to clear some alien eggs, and it'll tell you on the maps like where everything is. The map system isn't all that intuitive. I mean, it is very easy to get lost in the SNES version because there's a lot of doors going into different areas and doors coming off that. But there are enough terminals around that you can kind of like go to that and get your bearings if you need to. But the Sega versions are basically more of like an arcade kind of game. You rescue prisoners on a very tight time limit while killing aliens and then exiting the stage.
I was really impressed with the Sega Genesis version for how it controlled. You can point your gun up, you can like crouch to shoot. You've got several different kinds of weapons with actual different use cases. So the Sega Genesis 3-button controller is kind of a problem in a lot of games. It's like it's not enough buttons for some games, and then like a lot of the Sega classics, it feels like too many buttons somehow. Like Sonic is all 3 buttons are jump. But this one, like, one is your weapon switch, one is your jump, and one is your fire, and that's really all you need, especially considering how important weapon swapping is. Like, there were more than a couple occasions where I'm like, you know what? I need a grenade for this scenario. I got to deal with that alien down there in the vents.
If I am correct, the 6-button pad actually allows you to have all 3 weapons mapped. Rather than having like a switch, because I played with an emulator on the Genesis version, and I was able to kind of like map a 6-button pad, and I had a different button for each weapon, which was really useful.
I also just like how the Genesis version isn't about killing aliens, it's about rescuing humans. I do feel that like the video games where it's all about slaughtering xenomorphs kind of feel cheap as like a goal. I much prefer having like xenomorphs are in between you and something you need to do. But yeah, those time limits, they are nasty. Most of your lives are spent just running out of time trying to figure out the map layout.
What I ended up doing, I started on the Master System version first because that's the one I like own physically. But I wanted to take a look at the Genesis version as well, and I saw that is essentially the same game, but it just looks nicer. So I did most of my play on that. And what I actually did, I had my phone with a map of each level in front of me. So I was able to kind of like see where all the prisoners were. And even with the map, that time limit was tight. But I was able to make it all the way through to the second boss, which I couldn't defeat. But this is definitely a game where you kind of already need to know where the prisoners are if you're going to beat some of those time limits. The first couple levels are a bit more lenient, but as you get further along, you need to know where they are.
It kind of reminded me, did either of you play Alien Infestation on the DS?
No.
I highly recommend it. It's a sort of Metroidvania type alien shooter, and it's got that same sort of like slow paced, you're trying to like navigate these tunnels and ladders element to it. It's quite good, and this game reminded me of that.
The game that it reminded me of, I don't know if you remember this, Alejandra, but you and I played a game years and years ago called Alien Syndrome.
I do remember that. We played the Wii version and the original NES version.
Yes, and in the NES version, you made a comment, this has kind of an alien feel to it. And then they had blatant xenomorph ripoffs in the next level. So while playing this game based on Alien, it's like rescuing prisoners, shooting aliens with different weapons, including the flamethrower. This is Alien Syndrome from the side instead of the top.
Oh my god, that cover art for Alien Syndrome.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it?
With the just the blob, like, guy shooting fire, and there's a pink worm, and there's a baby growing out of his side.
Yeah.
The Wii version wasn't necessarily better. Honestly, the main thing holding the NES Alien Syndrome back was that it's before twin stick shooters.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to slowly turn your character around to shoot stuff.
Yeah, no, it was wild. The only thing that Alien 3 doesn't have that Alien Syndrome does is boss fights at the end of every level.
Yeah, but with Alien 3, it's after every third level, I believe.
Okay.
I got to the first boss and honestly didn't have a terrible time fighting it, which I was impressed by because normally the boss variants of xenomorphs are always really, like, dumb to me.
I didn't even get that far. Like I couldn't even get out of the first level on any of the versions. Like I am not good at this kind of game.
I will say, the maps feel like procedurally generated maps. I know they're not because they didn't really have that technology at the time, but the repeating, like, textures and artwork really gave it a this was designed by a computer feel.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And they are like absolute mazes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can be really tricky to navigate. This is why I had a map in front of me.
I enjoyed it. Oh, and as a fun little, like, side thing, I don't really remember any of the Alien or Aliens games from this time period, but this one, in the movie, Ripley has her head shaved. So in this case, I don't know. I had this image in my head of the developers being like, wait, Ripley looks like a bald man in this movie. All right, perfect. We can have the player character be Ellen Ripley without having to, like, offend all the boys who don't want to play as a girl because she doesn't even look like a girl this time. They were very relieved by that personal revelation of theirs.
I don't know, in the Super Nintendo version, it's like it's a little more clear. Like the character model does look a little more like actual Ripley than the one on the Master System or the Genesis. And then of course the Game Boy does the little picture with text box thing, and that's the only way you can see what the character looks like.
I liked it. Good game. I would play it on my own time.
So neither of you put a good amount of time into the SNES version, am I right?
Nope, I did not put a lot of time into any of them because I am bad at games.
So I didn't get too far into that particular version, but it does have a more interesting concept. As I mentioned before, you kind of like pick missions from a terminal, and you can have rescue prisoners, fix gas leaks, defeat alien eggs, stuff like that, and it will show you on the map exactly where you need to go. So it isn't like an arcade game like the Sega versions are, where you're just collecting prisoners on time limit. There is actually different missions. You can do different things. You don't have to do the missions in a particular order either. So it opens the game up, makes it like a lot more in depth. My only kind of like gripe with it is that you can only accept one mission at a time. I would much prefer to accept all the missions and then go around the entire map and just do everything at once. Whenever I play kind of like side content in MMOs, if I've got like 10 quests in a certain area, I'll pick them all up and I'll just go around, do all of them, and then hand them in at once.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
So I wish you could do that, but it is just one mission at a time. But it is a very interesting kind of like way to do it, and it is a lot more in depth than the other versions.
I did have a friend send me a couple of ROM hacks of both of these versions of the game that I kind of want to give a shout out to. For the Genesis, there's called the Alien 3 Survivor mod, which makes the timer go more slowly. The radar doesn't need batteries. Health packs just fully heal you. There's less ammo at higher levels. The timer one is the big change there because that's really like the pressure in that game. And if you had more time and infinite lives, it's just much more playable.
So the radar actually needs batteries then?
Yeah, you kind of found them around the level. It's just there was enough of them that you rarely ran out.
I mean, I was wondering why sometimes I couldn't see the radar.
And then for the SNES, there's Alien 3: The Assembly Cut, which rejiggers the control scheme to be more like Super Metroid, and adds a save feature to the in-game terminals, but you can only save twice per level. I don't have any experience with Alien 3 on the SNES, but that sounds like it would be handy.
Yeah. Being able to have some kind of checkpoint would be nice.
But I would want it to be kind of like unlimited. Like whenever you go past the terminal, just save like whenever, however many times you want.
Yeah, I am not here for the Resident Evil method of saving games. I didn't personally enjoy the game that much, but that's, again, I'm bad at it and did not get very far. I found it, like, I found I was having a lot of problems. Like, I would go to shoot just a second too late and get whacked in the face by the aliens running at me. Or, end up aiming the wrong direction. But whatever. It's decent enough. If you're a big Aliens fan, it's probably worth checking out.
Honestly, I think they hold up pretty well for the time period, especially for movie tie-ins.
I mean, yeah, there is that. I understand that it's a lot closer than movie tie-in games tend to be.
Well, I mean, it's nowhere near the movie at all. Like, the movie only has
one xenomorph.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Is it one or I think a second one gets birthed from the dog, doesn't it?
No,
it's
just one
time.
born from a cow, I think.
Ah, right. Yeah, and the games have hundreds of them.
Yeah, because you need mooks. You gotta have them mooks.
Yeah, you gotta have something to punch. Okay, so not terribly accurate.
Well, and Alien 3 as a movie is just not particularly like adaptable to a video game. There's like a whole segment later in the movie where they're like running around maze-like corridors to lure the alien into something that could make a video game, but that's like 15 minutes of the movie and the rest of it is like very depressing.
Yeah, again, I haven't seen it and haven't seen enough of these games to really to really make any kind of judgment call or blanket statements. If this kind of game is your thing, or if you have interest in Alien, it's all right. But
yeah, I'd recommend them if you're looking for more of an arcade game. Go for the Sega versions. If you're looking for something more in depth, go for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean I don't think they're terrible to find.
I mean the only physical one I have is the Master System, and I was easily able to emulate the other two.
Yeah, I mean, emulation makes everything easy. Holy crap! Alien 3 Super Famicom, $250.
Wow.
Okay, there's an Alien 3 Super Famicom for $28. Yeah, I think that first one is complete in box with plastic around the cartridge.
Uh,
Okay, yeah, prices aren't horrible. Look, you're looking at around 30 with a little bit of variance up or down. I would not pay $40 for the Game Boy version. I know that for sure.
hmm.
I think we're done with this one. We can take a quick break and move on to our next game.
Okay.
Well, not much to say, is there? Death was instantaneous.
No shit.
So our second game is the PS2, Xbox, and PC game The Thing, which is actually not a movie. Well, it's technically a movie tie-in, but it's a sequel to the 1982 film. I think they should have given it a different name if it was going to be a sequel. I actually
that's why it feels like a movie tie-in, because everything about like the advertising box art is just like, hey, you remember this movie, right?
Yeah. And it's also why people thought that the prequel made years later was actually a remake, because that is also just called The Thing.
Oh, jeez.
That prequel is so bad.
I know.
I haven't seen that, but I've seen the original 1982 film. It's very good.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's a classic.
Like I tend to like the more psychological and the more slow-paced horror movies, and this was like right up my alley with the mystery element, and the blood test was especially well done, I thought.
That was tense as hell when they've got like half the base tied up in chairs.
Yeah. Very, very tense, and like the way they did it, where it's like, okay, these are the people we think it is, and oh no, it's not. Here, okay, here's like the second to last person. Boom.
Like, it was one of you. I mean, what do you want me to say? It's superlatives all the way down. It's super tense. The whole why don't they just leave? Because it's the fucking Antarctic.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the monster just leave? Because it's the fucking Antarctic.
Yeah. Like, so that just so well done.
And the special effects are just mind blowing. Like, I still love that little head that falls off of one of the corpses and tries to spider its way out of there.
Yeah, like that. Like I mean, I love the movie, but I would say that head was better done than the ones in Reanimator.
That's the thing with really well done practical effects; they still look good to this day. I'm a big fan of practical effects in movies.
Oh, absolutely. John Carpenter's just really good at making movies.
Yeah.
Or is he alive?
Yes.
Oh, he's still alive. He spends most of his retirement playing video games.
You know what? I don't have a problem with that at all.
I think the main theme of the movie is don't adopt a random dog.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I was going to say it was isolation and paranoia, but yeah, sure. Don't adopt random dogs is a good message.
Yeah, and so the game, it's actually it was interesting because I started playing the game like the next day after I watched the movie, and it's funny how in the beginning of the game, they're like, they're explaining things about the situation, and like there's specific movie references, like you find McCready's tape. They talk about the blood test. They bring up a whole bunch of this stuff that took an hour and a half to get to in the movie, and it gets covered in like the first 20-30 minutes of this, just because like I think at this point they're expecting you to be up to speed, but they also did a good job explaining enough that you wouldn't be totally lost.
Well, and the PS2 was also the era of like movie tie-ins where like I'm thinking specifically of like the Lord of the Rings movie games where it's like you play them to access clips of the movie.
Yeah.
And this is not that. This is a game.
I mean, the Lord of the Rings games, at least the second and third ones were pretty good. The third one better than the second one, but this was a very good game. Like, I don't usually expect a lot of movie tie-ins. I actually really enjoyed this, apart from a little bit of jank, but it's the PS2. That's kind of to be expected.
I was genuinely impressed by how ambitious like the concept was, like a squad-based survival horror
shooter.
Yeah. It's I can't think of anything even like it nowadays.
Because I mean, you're talking about a game from before Sony America deciding that circle was cancel and not triangle.
Oh yeah, the amount of times I accidentally shot my my squad.
Yeah,
because I was trying to interact with them.
Yeah, like that. That's the time period we're talking about, and like the gunplay is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. Just because they have such crazy aim assist on. The biggest problem I had, and I mentioned this to Matt, the fire seemed to hurt me more than the monsters.
Yeah, I had that exact same issue.
Like, I would go to shoot the monster with the fire, and
now the monster's on fire and punching you with fire.
Well, no, not even that. The monster would start running away when the fire got near it, and I would either miss it entirely or clip it, and it would be a little bit on fire. But the ground would also be on fire, and I would be standing in the fire. So I ended up with this thing where I would, shoot the flamethrower or the torch or whatever I had, and then immediately switch to the fire extinguisher to put out the ground in front of me so I could continue pursuing the monster.
I was impressed by the flame dousing mechanics, actually. I can't believe I'm mentioning this the second time, but it reminded me of that Alone in the Dark game on the 360. Not with less impressive fire mechanics, but in the same way that, like, fire isn't just like a background texture that hurts you if you get too close. Like, it's an interactive element.
Right.
There are actually two different flamethrowers. One is really short range. That is the one that I kept setting myself on fire with. You can find a bigger one which has like a longer range, where you won't be setting like the floor and yourself on fire at the same time as you're setting the alien on fire. But most of the time, as I was using that flamethrower, I was just hurting myself more than the enemy.
I was okay, so you guys played it on controller. I played it with mouse and keyboard, which the aim assist is less assisty.
Well, yeah.
The mouse scroll is weapon select, which is, nice and quick.
Handy.
But the one thing that I think I probably should have rebound if I'd thought to do it was switching between weapon select and item select, which was bound to clicking the mouse wheel.
Oh,
not super quick if I'm trying to scroll between weapons and items super fast.
And also potentially hard to do depending on your mouse.
Yeah. I was I mean, okay, so not only is it a squad-based horror game, it leans into the paranoia elements. Like the first time I mean, this is in the first tutorial level, so it's like, oh, your doctor sees something spooky and he gets a little spooked. So I gave him a gun so he feels a little bit safer and is less spooked. Because if you let your guys get too spooked, they'll just stop moving there. It's like, nope, I'm not leaving this room.
And then if you really spook them, they'll shoot you.
I mean, I never got them that spooked.
No,
But,
I never did.
But it's in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
But-
and I thought that was a really, like, if you're gonna make a game based on The Thing, I think that was a really good mechanic to incorporate. The, having someone slowly crack more and more, and particularly the way, like, oh, I'm standing in the room with The Thing and I'm freaking out, but as soon as I leave the room, I feel better. I thought that was pretty accurate to how some parts of the movie went, and again, just made for a more compelling gameplay experience. Like, this is something that even without the context of the movie, even without, I don't know if I would have ever come across it had we not done it for this, but this is a game that I would be fine just playing. Even if I hadn't seen the movie, it's enjoyable enough as a game that, I would play through this.
A lot of the game is about wandering around trying to find objectives, and they're not marked on your map. You don't even get. They're not marked on anything. There's no HUD that like has a little arrow pointing, so you just kind of have to wander around. And it's the Antarctic. You can't wander around outside that much.
Right.
Which took me a little while to get used to, because I found that a little unguided at first. I mentioned earlier that Amnesia Rebirth, there's like whole like deserts that you can wander, but like you're not supposed to because they'll burn you alive.
Right.
And those were better at like setting up in geometry that was like, oh, I should walk over towards those rocks. Whereas this, you're supposed to follow like the blue lights, but sometimes the draw distance didn't show me the blue lights.
Well, and it also specifically tells you, like, you can follow the lights and be fine, but there are also things outside of the light path. So don't be afraid to explore. Just don't explore too much.
There were one or two times where I actually had to look up a guide because I wasn't sure where I was meant to go.
Mm-hmm.
But,
and it's not like the freezing is. It's not like the freezing is like a permanent thing. Like if you start getting cold, just run back to like an inside and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, even if that is just a shack.
I'll tell you what. And I'll tell you what pissed me off about that. You know when you have a squad of 3 people and you're going into a shack to escape from the cold? Sometimes one of your squad members will just wait outside the shack and like freeze to death. Because his AI just will not walk him in.
Yeah, that partner AI is not necessarily as advanced as you want it to be for this type of game.
That is true. I know. I also like the point that I got to. You basically didn't have partners anymore, and then like you get more, and then they leave.
One question I wanted to ask actually about the squad member infestation thing. When you get the blood tests, which is fairly early on in the game, did both of your squad members turn, or was that random?
Yeah, both mine went.
That is probably scripted then. Yeah.
Yeah, I had both turn.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like random or not.
That would have been cool if it was.
Hmm.
Yeah, because like when I encountered those guys first thing, I'm like, that's pretty suspicious, especially the one that's just standing in the room with the frozen coffin. Like, he's just standing there.
Yeah. Not freaking out.
On the flip side, you really do need your squad members because, like, they have, like, classes that do different things that you need.
Yeah, like the engineer being the only one that can fix certain things.
I never encountered a scenario where the medic was helpful.
There's generally enough healing items in the level, as long as you're relatively careful.
Yeah, so I did think it was interesting, the movie, because it's, a movie and, was using practical effects for so much, like, goes to great lengths to show, like, a fully monstered out creature, like, as little as possible. Whereas in this one, like, you're looking at the full-on monsters constantly.
That actually ties into my one main complaint about the game. It did, at points, turn into a horde shooter.
Yeah.
Which I felt kind of killed the atmosphere.
Yeah, especially the little ones. Like, the little ones, they're like, well, they go down easy. We'll just throw a bunch of them at you. It's like, no.
It's not how this works. Like, the thing where you have 3 of them in a building and you have to go track them down and get them, that, to me, is a more engaging mechanic than, we just have a bunch of these little dudes that are going to annoy the piss out of you.
Yeah, and there's a couple of times in the game where they spawn for like a constant 2 minutes or so, and you're just mowing down one after the other. And it's kind of like in horror games, what I like is kind of like less monsters but stronger. Like in Resident Evil, every enemy is a threat.
Yes.
In this game, those little things, they aren't a threat; they're just more of an annoyance.
Yeah.
Like, you have to deal with them because they'll hurt you, but if they're not hard to deal with, they go down in like a couple bullets.
Yeah, I was much more like I think they call them walker. I think they call them walkers.
Yes.
I was much more engaged when I was dealing with those. The little guys were just annoying, especially because you can easily miss them. And then your squad mates will also miss them, and then they'll just die.
Yeah, I was like all about decking out my squad mates with weapons at first, but then I realized they're not very good shots.
Nope.
And like their ammo is coming from the general ammo pool, so maybe I shouldn't be fully decking them out.
Well, I was decking them out initially. I got to the scene where they both turn, and I actually ended up dying from that because I wasn't expecting both of them to turn. But I'd saved just before it. So when I went back to that save, first thing I did, take those weapons off them. It's like, I'm having them back because you're about to turn into aliens. Yep. So, and then they turned and I got 2 free weapons out of it.
I survived that encounter, and I did just kind of they drop the weapons, like they're not just gone from game logic. It's just you can't really stop to see them when you're being chased around the room.
Yeah, that fight took me a few tries. Again, mostly because of the fire. Like, it's like, I seem to have cut myself off from the rest of the room.
I did end up getting quite far, fairly far. I got as far as the first, what I'm assuming is the first boss that I couldn't take down. This is after you've gone into this whole warehouse section and had like another horde shooter section, and there's like a boss downstairs in this warehouse, and I personally couldn't get past that.
I got as far as the let's see. So I did the blood test part, and then I was a little bit past that, but not terribly far past it.
I got to the second level where the doctor wants you to kill the 3 walkers, and then like the first walker jumped me in the room with the pool table, and I was
Yeah.
able to defeat it, but I accidentally grenaded my squad mate into giblets.
Whoops.
And at that point I was just like, I'm done for tonight. That was a mistake.
I never did that, but I don't think I ever actually threw a grenade.
They have like a charge time to make them throw farther, but like the enemies just kind of run right for you.
Yeah.
I tried to be clever and play ring around the pool table to lead them into grenades. It didn't seem to be working.
Yeah, so we get the more accurate but also more annoying depiction of grenades.
I enjoyed it. The Thing game has been on my radar for a while. I see it at retro shops occasionally. It's not a common find, but it's also not like dummy expensive either. But yeah, no, I'm glad I got the PC mod. I modded it just a little to have mouse look. And the site that I got it from included the PDF of the manual, which,
nice.
Yeah, it includes like a guide on how to get through the first 2 levels.
Oh, so it's one of those manuals.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we're going to walk you through these first 2 levels so you know what you're doing, and then you're on your own.
I think Resident Evil 4 did that as well. I think there was like a little mini guide in the PS2 version of Resident Evil 4. I don't have it to hand right now, but yeah, basically the start of the Prima guide, I think, just like to get you through the first like 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, there was a lot that did that. So they were working on a sequel to this game, because apparently the game did well enough to get a sequel greenlit. But apparently the company went into receivership, and that kind of killed the project.
And yet there's like 4 not very good Evil Dead games.
and one, pretty all right one.
That could have been our fate. I did suggest the Evil Dead games for this episode.
Yeah, I like when we started talking about games based on horror movies, the only thing I could think of was the Evil Dead games, and I was like, oh, that would not be pleasant.
I probably would have recommended Constantine for the PS2.
I didn't even know there was a Constantine game.
Yeah, I mean, the movie's not that scary, but the game is like, it's not bad at all. Like, I finished it. Which is saying something for a movie tie-in from the PS2 era.
Yeah.
Another thing this game reminded me of, I've never played this game, but a long time ago I heard about this game called Cryostasis. It's a PC horror game that I don't even think you can buy anywhere anymore. Like, it's super abandoned.
Yeah, I could believe that.
But I like games that deal with like cold as a mechanic, because cold is terrifying. Like, really murder you cold, not to be fucked with.
Yeah.
They should have done something like that in the Silent Hill Shattered Memories, but they just had monsters chase you with their little ghibli faces.
I mean, wasn't that from the time period where Konami thought just anyone could make Silent Hill?
I mean, yes, but somehow Silent Hill Shattered Memories is still like one of the better Silent Hill games.
And not even having played the games, just knowing the little bit I know about their development or lack thereof is just wild.
I mean, to bring it all the way back to Silent Hill games, I think they all hold up except for Homecoming. Homecoming is just bad. That is a bad game, and it's the only one you can get on Steam.
And of course, don't ever play the HD collections.
Not if you can help it. I was lucky enough to get an old cracked version of Silent Hill 3 for the PC.
That's always nice.
Mm-hmm. And the Silent Hill 4 is on GOG, so that's actually like legally available. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's really easy to get.
4 annoyed me. Mostly because you have to go back to the same locations the second time towards the end of the game. I wouldn't say it's a bad game, but when you have such a strong opening trilogy, that like 4 fell down quite a bit for me.
I like 4, but yeah, it's different, and of all of them, it pushes the envelope the most on like resource scarcity to the point that it could be kind of unfun. Like it's the only one of the original trilogy that has like a limited inventory system.
Yeah.
Which, Resident Evil did that for years, but like if you were into Silent Hill, it's probably because you didn't like fucking around with the item box.
Plus, there's only one item box as well. You've got to go back to your room to get stuff again.
I don't know. I stand by it. Hell, but I'm weird. I think Silent Hill Book of Memories is not the worst thing ever. Definitely should not have been made. But Way Forward is too good a developer to make something completely unplayable.
Is that the one that's a horde shooter?
That's the one that's a dungeon crawler on the Vita.
Yeah, it's the Diablo clone.
Mm.
But like I said, Way Forward, the company that makes the Shantae games, made that one. They're too good a developer to make something completely awful.
Right. But I mean, in terms of the thing, I actually really recommend it. And like I said, even if you haven't seen the movie, number one, see the movie because it's very good. But they do a pretty good job of explaining a lot of the base concepts early on. They tell you, there was this team here, this base is completely destroyed. Somehow, here's, information we found. You hear a tape, so playing it without having seen it, you do, because it's like the whole point of the character being there is he's trying to solve the mystery of what happened. So I guess in that respect, you have a little bit of that mystery yourself. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't know.
And as a sequel concept, the U.S. government came to find out what happened to their expensive base is not a terrible, opening pitch.
No, it's really not. And, giving them access to heavier weaponry is a good way to raise the stakes.
And whilst I personally wish it was more horror, less action, I did still enjoy my time with it, and I will at some point probably go back and finish it off.
Yeah, I'll definitely go back and attempt to finish it. I can't guarantee that I'll get through it, but I will definitely go back and play this again because this was a lot better than I expected. So I was very pleasantly surprised by this one. So I think if we're pretty much agreed on that, we're pretty much talked out on that. We can take another short break and come back and wrap things up.
Okay.
You've been in my life so long, I can't remember anything else.
So that was our games based on horror movies episode. I'm sure this is something we'll be able to come back to, although probably with a lot worse games, because there are not many of this category that are very good.
Yeah, movie tie-in games, already not a great selection. And then you specify horror movies? Oh dear.
Yeah. So this kind of topic could get painful later. But thank you for joining us, Alejandra.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Where can people find you online?
Oh, I had a great time. Thanks for having me on, fellas. You can find my personal videos and Twitter at Pluto Burns. I'm trying to release a video for the last 3 months, like one video a month for the last 3 months of the year. I've been really bad at releasing videos, but I got like a whole back catalog of manga reviews and some movie stuff you can watch. If you go back far enough, you'll see me before the transition. Please be nice. I also have a book coming out right on Halloween that you can get on Amazon Kindle or paperback even. It's not just me. It is a short story collection of gothic tales that me and a bunch of people I know on another Discord were just... I don't know, we just got a bee in our bonnet one day and slammed out a book over a few months. That one's called The Lights from Distant Bonfires. So check that out.
I have a rather large collection of short story anthology collections, so I will definitely check that out. That is kind of my bag.
Yeah, there's definitely something I'll check out. I mean, as for us, if you're listening to this, you know where to find us. But yeah, so I guess that'll be it for us this time. I'll just go ahead and say right now, Alejandra will be back when it comes time to talk about Platinum games, because that's something else she's an expert in.
When will you get to that? You've already done Okami.
Well, we gotta number one, we gotta get further along to get to actual Platinum, and we also just I don't think either one of us is really that into Platinum games.
Well, I can definitely pick up your slack on that one.
Well, yeah, you know more about Platinum games than pretty much anyone I know, and probably several people I don't know. But anyway, that's it for us this time. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
In an insane world, a sane man must appear